Hi everyone, and welcome back to Project No Buy. In today's video, I wanted to explore what makes the things that I have and use the most feel like me. And perhaps in saying it like that, I kind of answered my own question, but it's just another exploration, I guess, of stuff and identity, and what qualities make certain things kind of identity signifiers, I guess, and what things don't really work in that way, despite kind of being marketed towards us as being signifiers of some kind of identity or status or in-group participation, and etc. So this conversation, I guess, was kind of, or this journal entry rather, becoming a conversation here with you, was kind of inspired by thinking about the shorts that I didn't buy and all the shorts that I own in my life. And in particular, in the gym short category, I only have 3 pairs, a black, a pink, and a bright cobalt blue. And so for my physical therapy meetings, which I've just completed actually, now I need to keep doing the exercises at home, but I ended up wearing the blue ones especially in particular multiple times, sometimes, multiple visits in a row. I typically had a visit a week, and I didn't really worry about that. I know it's probably normal to not worry about that. And, I'm not trying to advocate for feeling like you need more shorts or less shorts or, whatever, outfit repeating is good or bad. This is not that conversation, but my point was that I have kind of a signature pair of blue workout shorts, and it didn't bother me to wear those every time, to basically have a uniform, have a color that was kind of recognizable. And in addition to the shorts, I also have a sports bra in that same blue and a jacket in that blue. And so sometimes I would be wearing, all of those pieces plus a tank top over in the same visit multiple times. And so sometimes, or I guess in a previous life, for me, I would have been self-conscious about showing up in the same thing, lest people think I only have one set of gym clothes. And the me of today doesn't really care if people think I only have one set. And also, if I really did only have one set, it's only a visit a week. And if I washed it, doing laundry is a normal thing as well. It's not something that is a need that has to be remedied if you really do only have one pair of gym shorts. And I mentioned that I have 3. I also have sweatpants, leggings, other workout wear options. And so it's not that I am restricted to only working out once a week because of my laundry or anything like that. Again, this is maybe getting a bit convoluted, but the experience that I was having is that mindset shift between caring even just a little bit about what people saw me wearing and how often they saw me wearing something different versus really not caring anymore. And I mentally knew, or have known for a long time, that it's not a bad thing to outfit repeat, that it's not some sign of being poor or having not good style or not having your life together or whatever, to have a beautifully curated and large wardrobe full of many options, despite the fact that I actually do have a large wardrobe full of many options. But it was different, I guess, actually coming into the space of feeling it. And again, this is what this channel is, so much of this channel is about. Knowing things, but then actually feeling them or contextualizing them through lived experience in different ways. But it was maybe interesting also to note that this time a year ago, 2 years ago perhaps, I guess for my birthday in 2024, I got a lot of that workout wear and was in a space where I wanted more and more options, more different kind of particular items, colors, and I guess more being better or having more options was kind of a need or an essential that I kind of viewed in that way, where now I truly don't view it in that way anymore. And so it led to this thought path of what makes the things that I have feel like mine, and what makes the things, some things do feel more like me or more mine than others. And so I have a list here of things that do feel like mine. And one of the main factors is that it's all stuff that I've had for a long time, or if it's stuff that I've acquired more recently, it's stuff that I've used a lot and on repeat and am not afraid to use on repeat. And so I was going to share some of these specific items with you today and encourage you to do your own reflection on what things that you have that feel the most yours and why that is, and how to perhaps avoid, in a way, purchases that aren't going to feel like yours or like you. And again, hopefully a lot of you aren't making these mistakes like I was, but I do look back on all the things I regret buying. I have a whole playlist spanning these videos of things that I regret buying in the past. And most of those things do not feel like me. They did not feel like me. I still have clothing pieces that don't feel 100% like me. And some of these I'm discovering by wearing them and discovering it through real time, real use, despite having a fantasy that I could be that person that would wear something like the gray miniskirt, for example, and realizing that in practical experience, I objectively think it looks good, but it's just not me to wear it, and it's not a piece that I like to choose on repeat. Whereas the gray denim maxi skirt, it's not about it being a skirt or the color or gray. I also have a cream denim mini skirt, it's not about the mini maxi. It's just different pieces that feel like me or not for various reasons, and I'm just slowly discovering this and able to let go more and more of those pieces that really just don't feel like me and are not going to feel like me because I'm not going to use them on repeat and I'm not going to keep them for a long time. So anyway, getting into the specific pieces here, I guess this really spans all categories of stuff. So it's not just clothing, although clothing is probably the category that I've had the most fixation on in terms of overbuying, decluttering, being in that constant cycle of updating and contemplating and having size fluctuations even kind of dictating some of these changes. So we will get to a lot of clothing pieces, but first I wanted to talk about some kind of more general pieces that I've had for a long time that really feel like signature aspects of me, things that I would take wherever I move and continue using until they fall apart and then repair when they fall apart. So the first thing is actually this blanket, and this was something that my husband had made for us when we were dating, and it's actually one of those blankets with our faces on it, so I'm not gonna go. Sometimes you'll see I've got a corner flipped and it looks like there's like a melted face at the bottom of the page or something like that. I usually keep it on this side for filming purposes because it would be a little distracting, but in wintertime this goes onto our bed for an added layer of warmth, and this is something that I foresee keeping forever. And, unless something happens with our relationship, but, I don't foresee that happening. I'm going to try to avoid that. So, first thing being this fuzzy blanket. And blankets are one of those kind of hot commodities, I feel like, during the holiday season, where they're pitched as gifts. You see them in basket videos. You can walk by a blanket end cap at Target or Walmart and see them for under $10. So again, it's kind of a cheap and easy holiday item that you can kind of add to your life, add to your decor, gift to people, even though probably most people already have a blanket. And it just kind of reassures me, I guess, or I feel satisfied in knowing that I already have the blankets for me for life, or for as long as it can possibly last. And this is obviously more me, more mine, because of that aspect of personalization. I mean, it literally has my face on it. And, it's maybe not the most sustainable way to have stuff, have screen prints of yours and your spouse's face on them. But again, if I use this for the next 50 years or however, maybe I don't have that long, but you know what I mean. If I continue to use it for as long as I can, then it's ultimately, again, it's hard to compare, right? It's not a comparison game. It's not like I can sit here and say, oh, it's better than buying a new blanket every year for $10 and then having them wear out because they're cheap and cycling through this way. But you get what I'm trying to communicate here, I think. The next couple of items are also kind of homeware. I've made fun of this before, but I have literally had this for over 5 years at this point. And again, I take care of it. I try not to let anybody spill on it. And it's just a really handy shape for me to have. I know it's kind of a trendy item, but and again, I hope not to be influencing you in showing some of these items, but my throw pillows are something I've had for a long time. Again, this was a custom made one from Etsy. Again, because the print here has some meaning for us in our relationship. And the color scheme matches what we chose for our bed. It's kind of a gray and navy blue theme. And I also have some stuffed animals, one of which is from my literal childhood. So I have a cat that my parents kept and I now have on my adult bed, and a penguin, again, which has some significance for me personally. And it doesn't really matter to me how old and ratty they get. I will be keeping and cherishing those for as long as I live. And I have no desire to change these out or acquire more, or, I think that is something as well for kids to maybe be helpful reminders when they want more, that they have their favorites, right? And if we can cherish our favorite ones, those are the ones that kind of get the most love anyway. And so it doesn't really give us a lot more to continue adding to that collection at any age, really. I guess also in the homeware category, there's one particular mug that I have that I got while visiting my friend on a cruise. I think this was in 2018. So again, I guess at this point I've had it for 7 years, which is kind of crazy to think about that it's been that long, but there you are. And it's a really nice mug. It's a large one, so it's really good for cups of tea. And it's lasted, obviously. I haven't chipped it or anything. And it is a firm favorite. It's a navy blue mug with a picture of the cruise ship that I got to stay on with my friend who was playing on the cruise. She was part of a classical music group. And I did audition for this cruise line, but I did not get picked. So it was nice to get to go visit her. And she got to have guests stay free of charge. So I just had to pay for my travel to and from the cruise ports. And it was a really, really nice kind of vacation experience, like a luxury that I never would have been able to experience otherwise. And so I'm really grateful to her for letting me come and visit. And I have the mug as a memento of that experience. And again, I intend to keep it and take care of it for as long as that mug can possibly last. And it does insulate me against any kind of cute mugs that I might see out and about and want to add to my collection. I do think that I currently own 4 mugs, and 2 of those, one of those was from my grandmother. When she passed away, we went and looked through the things she owned, and I have really good memories of enjoying tea with her, tea and biscuits in New Zealand in one of those mugs. So I have one of her floral mugs, and 2 of those were gifts. So there's a Starbucks one with a tiger and a mug with a piece of viola music on it that my dad gave me. So I think those are the 4 mugs that I currently own. And once again, it insulates me. Every time I see especially a ceramic kind of handmade pottery mug, I get tempted because they're just so beautiful. And I might have one more mug actually that I keep other things in. I don't actually use it to drink, but it's got an imprint of a viola bridge on it. Again, another gift, but it's kind of small, so I don't use it for hot beverages. But so maybe I have 5. We'll see. We'll see if that's still in my cupboard. But every time I see handmade ceramic mugs, I get a little tempted because they are so beautiful, so aesthetically pleasing. I like that kind of rustic appeal, but I don't buy it because I have the mugs that feel like me, that are firmly mine already. There are kind of the obvious things, or maybe obvious to me, like the tools that I use for work, like my viola, for example, which I've also had since, I believe, 2018. And that's not actually a very long time for a musician to have an instrument. We keep these things for decades. And mine was actually only made in 2017, so it's a modern instrument. And I do plan to have it for the rest of my career. I got really, really lucky in that I found one for, again, I'm not going to go into how much it costs, but it was a very inexpensive instrument for what it is. And I used my student loan to pay for it at the time. I was finishing my master's degree. And I got really lucky in that I don't really feel the need to upgrade to a professional price, professional level instrument. Most of the time they cost at least 3 or 4 times what I paid for mine. And I honestly couldn't really comfortably afford that right now. And so I just got really lucky that I can continue playing on my first kind of nice or nicer instrument. So I will hopefully be partners for life. There might be a chance that I have to downsize because I do play a large viola. They're not standard sizes, but there's something about that sound of a large viola that, again, does feel like me. And being a taller person, I'm going to continue playing it for as long as I can. Maybe when I get older, 50 or 60 or something, I'll have to look for a smaller one in order to keep playing, but we'll see. To a lesser extent, the tools that I use for other tasks in my life, things like this iPad, which honestly maybe feels a little more personal because of the case that I got for it. I think I did get that this year and talked about it as kind of a mild no-buy failure because it wasn't necessarily something, or did I get it last year when I got the iPad itself? Was that part of, I can't even remember, but I got this case, I got the phone holder thing, you know, it's right here, and I got the headphone cover, so I have a matching kind of pink psychedelic flower pattern for all of my tools of the trade, if you will. So maybe it's that little personalization touch that makes these feel like mine and feel distinctive. I do think there's something positive in that, specifically because I don't feel the need to get any other phone cases, any other, you know, the company that sells these actually has a big campaign about like, change them out for your mood, or have a different one for different seasons. Here, you can like buy two, get one free, or, you know, I don't know what promotions they have. I'm not following or anything like that. But a lot of these things like cases and other accessories, the draw is like you can change them with your mood or have a different look for different outfits. And I think when we choose something that we really feel connected to, we kind of minimize that desire to change things out. And I do have this experience still with my handbag collection because I have so many options that I do. So I've been rotating less actually, but I have still rotated a little bit, and I wasn't able to come up with what my signature handbag would be. And there are some contenders, of course, but unlike some of these other categories where if I had to choose one, it's an easy choice, choosing a handbag that I feel like is my signature is not an easy choice. You know, the one that feels the most like me, again, is kind of not obvious because I have and use so many. And I'm actually kind of moving away from that now, both for reasons of practicality and for reasons of wanting to have more signature pieces or more kind of identifiable. Again, I don't love relying on objects to signify who I am or what I value or, you know, things like that. But it does inevitably happen through the things we have and use on repeat. And so, you know, I'm not fighting it or leaning into it intentionally, but I guess this is just a deep contemplation of these things. And so I guess let me get back to the clothes, and then we might talk about handbags a little more when we get to the end of the clothing series here. So I just picked a handful of clothing pieces that I do feel like are me, you know, they're the most mine out of all the things that I own. And to nobody's surprise, the first thing I picked is this bright blue sweater. And once again, I like to point out that although there's a very effective and popular influencer who has, it might even be this same sweater in this color, I actually had not seen her with her blue sweater before I had this one. I had this one first, although I was tipped off to this brand by that influencer. If you know, you know. And so I think she's also done an hour-long video about this brand of sweater and reviewing a different variety, you know, different color, different style. And so I have been very inspired by creators like this. However, this is undoubtedly a me signature piece, largely because of this color. This color in general is a mainstay in my wardrobe. I have 3 pairs of shoes in different styles in this color, and I will not be decluttering them even if they are excessive because they tie together pieces like this. I have pants in this color, I have other tops, you know, I have a cardigan, and it's just one of those things that is easy for me to wear and feels like me in just the way that I've leaned into it, and I refuse to cave to trends. You know, if this color goes out of style, then so be it. I will still be wearing it. And if I look like I'm from 2024 or whatever, you know, whenever this color was popular, then that's fine with me. And I do think that the quality of this sweater and my willingness to take care of it, I guess, is another important part. I think I saw Chelsea on the Financial Diet talking about this as well, in that some of the clothes, I think it was in one of those videos about the Row sample sale, where people were going crazy on TikTok about this sample sale from this really expensive brand. Anyway, but she was saying that part of the reason our more expensive clothes last longer is because we're willing to take care of them. And I do agree with that. I do think that since I've started treating everything, you know, I have a whole load of laundry that I'm not willing to put in the dryer. And this includes things like my cheaper kind of band t-shirts. and just things that I want to preserve. And I do think that these things can last a long time. It's not really dependent on price or even on quality to some extent, because if we're willing to take a needle and thread to these things and repair them, then they can last a really long time. Anyway, my other top pick perhaps for sweatshirts, sweaters that feel like me is actually the one I'm wearing. And this is one that I got more recently during my first No Buy year, 2024. Some of you might remember the saga I had with wanting this sweater and then finally caving and getting it. I think it was for Mother's Day, which is not what I would consider a normal gift-giving occasion. Every time I talk about having bought myself things for Valentine's and Mother's Day and stuff, I get comments about how it's not normal in other countries than the US to have gifts on these occasions. I wanted to say that it's not really normal in the US either. Okay, that was a sign of how deep I was in wanting to find any reason to shop and, making anything into a gifting occasion that could be made into a gifting occasion and kind of using that as a loophole in order to justify the buy. And so I made that the justification for this sweater. As it turns out, I wear it every week. It's one of my laundry first pulls. I do like to wear it out and about. I think it's acceptable enough to wear in public, to work even, and I try to keep it nice. I do actually have some cooking stainage on this sleeve. I'm gonna have to put stain remover on that and get it in the laundry after this video. But it is one of those pieces. And again, I have a South Dakota connection. So I grew up there, and the Badlands kind of graphic here is another reason this piece feels like me. And it's going to be mine for as long as it can be. And it has that kind of identity feature built in, but also by choice, right? Like that was what attracted to me to this piece in the first place. Now, I don't want to necessarily encourage materialism in this exploration. So let me just take a moment to say that as well. I'm not advocating for undue attachment to objects, right? Ultimately, the blue sweater is just woven yarn or knitted yarn. This sweatshirt is just probably polyester blend fabric that has a graphic printed on it. It isn't really a symbol of me or an identity kind of, it's not the fabric of me. It's just fabric that I wear on my body. But I think, again, we have to wear clothes. We have to participate in this kind of narrative of fashion, regardless of whether we want to or not, or regardless of how intentional with it we want to be. And so there is an element of, I don't want to say forced participation, but we will be seen regardless. And so I have decided that I do want to maybe shape how I'm perceived to some extent, to a reasonable extent, and to an extent that's not shaped by outside trends anymore. So I think I've already kind of discussed this in previous videos in various forms, so I'm gonna leave that now, but there's my kind of addendum about not trying to be too materialist in this exploration of why these material things represent me. Other clothing pieces that really feel like they're mine are the striped track pants. I have 2 pairs of these in black and then again in that cobalt blue. I'm having some problems with the blue pair in that the elastic is quite tight, and I'm looking for ways to either stretch it or possibly even cut a panel into those so that they can be more comfortable and that I can wear them more often, because sometimes I would like to be wearing them, but I don't want a tight waistband. And so it's because I find these pants to be so, again, emblematic of what I want to wear, my identity, that I'm willing to find the way to wear them instead of donating or reselling them. So there are some upsides. Again, it makes us want to take care of our clothes, makes us want to find ways to prolong the life of our clothes if we do find these pieces. The other bottom item, pants item, I guess, is none other than the ridiculously expensive jeans that I got last year. And again, these were a recent purchase. The blue sweater was something I had in Texas, so it's been maybe 5 years now since I've had that sweater. And these are a 1-year-old pair of pants, but they are something that feels like me because of how often I wear them and how often I'm willing to repeat them and how kind of, I guess, they've become a part of my signature style. People do notice them, and I get comments, positive comments on these pretty regularly, even though I wear them so often. And so, I think that's a positive sign that they do something good for my style, my presentation. Again, not relying on outside feedback, not seeking it, not trying to shape that in a particular way, but it is kind of positive feedback that kind of confirms, you know, like, these pants maybe do suit me as a style signifier. And again, you know, part of that is because I wear them so much and I have made them that way. And you know, if you were here during this time where I was thinking about these pants, I thought about it a lot, and at the time of purchase, it did kind of feel like a silly decision and something that was fraught with the tug of war of like no buy rules, no buy efforts, no buy like I shouldn't be doing this, I guess the guilt in a way. Also how expensive they were and still are. You know, they retail for $500 and you can get them 15% off, I believe, through various discount portals. But they're an expensive pair of pants, and my history definitely didn't suggest that that was a good idea as far as cycling through clothing at a rapid pace. And they're still only a year in my closet, and I do hope at least that the sizing issues will be a non-issue because I chose a large size and a style that has kind of versatility. That's another lesson that I kind of recently learned in size fluctuations, that even the things that you love, some of which won't fit long term, and there's nothing you can really do about that. Even things like shoes you might outgrow, and that wasn't something that I'd considered before. For example, when I got the beautiful crocodile print gray boots, I thought my foot size will be stable. It's okay, therefore, to spend $200 on this pair of shoes. I know better now, though. I know that anything, practically anything, can be outgrown in one way or another. Even a purse can be outgrown in that perhaps the size and compartments and strap length or whatever no longer suits the functionality of your life. And so I'm older and wiser in my habits of consumption, and know that nothing is forever, even if you think it is, even if you think it could be. But maybe some things will be for a very long time. And there are factors that you can control that will help you choose these things and increase the likelihood that things will be for as close to forever as possible. There are some kind of honorable mention pieces. So the striped button-up shirts that I have, the graphic band tees that I have, again, these kind of old trusty favorites, the tube top collection that I do really like to wear as undershirts for the aforementioned button downs, or when I'm just home or out and about in summer just by themselves. Perhaps somewhat ironically, the other thing I realized in doing this exercise was that my favorite wardrobe categories of shoes and bags are the categories in which it is most difficult to pick the signature piece. So again, with the bags, as I was talking about, I have quite a large selection of purses, and although most of them are from one brand, and so the brand itself could kind of be a signature style, although I don't love the idea of having a brand be part of my identity, I rotate through what I have with enough regularity, or I have historically. This year it's been a little bit different, but I have rotated enough that it's hard to pick just one of these that is the most me, or that is the most likely, you know, if somebody saw all these bags, they could point to that one and say, I think she wears that one the most. Maybe this year is a little different because I've been taking my iPad to work more, and I only have one bag, actually, that fits the iPad comfortably. And so it's the large black tote bag. And I guess this is maybe another little spoiler, is that I have been looking into getting a version of a nylon bag that will fit this iPad as well, just because it's easier to manage that when I'm going to work. And I have been going to work more this year, having newly been made a full-time member of my orchestra. And so I possibly have one more thing to add to the Black Friday list. I think that's going to be the next video, which I'm going to have to film a lot of editing addendums to, because many things have changed since I filmed that, which, sorry about that, but c'est la vie, I guess. So I might have one more bag after Christmas that fits the iPad in it. And again, those bags might become my signature bags because those are the only two that I will use when I'm going to work. And one doesn't even really need two different bags if you have one that works, but there are various reasons that, well, there's really only one reason. I have a tote bag, which is only wearable on the shoulder, and it can be challenging when I'm walking from the far parking garage to manage that and my viola and whatever else I'm carrying. I have a seat cushion that I have to carry now, and so the bag that I'm looking at is a nylon bag that goes crossbody, and so my viola is a backpack style, so I can't have a backpack for my iPad, and so I have the idea that I will do a kind of messenger bag, crossbody, viola backpack, seat pad in my hands, and then I can kind of operate on a more hands-free basis. And so there's maybe the foreshadowing for one more item on my Black Friday list. Again, I do think my intention is to get that in my signature color of bright blue, and it'll match my bright blue shoes and give my outfit some intention that way. That might become the bag everybody knows me for. And how, again, it's a little ironic when I have this massive collection of one brand's handbags that I won't be wearing those as much anymore. And those will maybe become the bags that I use when I'm not going to work, which was not my intention and not what I foresaw when I acquired all these handbags in the first place. So again, lessons learned. I do still like having them on my shelves, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's just interesting to observe, I guess, how my projected use of these things actually changes in reality. You know, when I got all these, I thought I'd be rotating through them for the rest of my life. But the actual circumstances of life are dictating that I prefer a different style of bag to take to work every day. And so there we are. A similar thing has happened with shoes in that I maybe have some general categories that I wouldn't say I'm necessarily known for, but I wear most, right? So either one of my blue pairs of shoes, which I have a pair of Ugg slipper boots, I have a pair of Birkenstock slides, or clogs rather, and I have a pair of sneakers in that blue. So it's one of those blue pairs of shoes. Either that or another pair of sneakers, which I think I'm going to try to slowly wear these out and maybe only keep a blue pair. So we'll see how that goes. It's going to take years, but that's maybe the plan or intention. And then Western inspired boots, either real Western boots or, you know, Western detailed boots. And so those are kind of like my big three categories: blue sneakers or Western boots. And you know, there might be certain pairs that I wear more than others. For example, the blue pair of Uggs is usually my pair that I wear when I'm going to perform because I have my black shoes in my locker at work. And so I will always come in those blue slippers, and probably people would recognize me for those. And, you know, for better or worse, you know, they're a very casual kind of ratty looking pair of shoes, but they're very, very comfortable and warm. So the blue clogs, I guess, will become my substitute when the weather becomes warmer, or the sneakers for when I'm in the further garage, you know, so they all kind of have their own function, their own kind of scenario. There's reasons that I don't wear particular pairs of shoes, you know, if I have to walk a further distance on a day, or if it's cold or if it's warm, you know, so different shoes provide different functions just as different clothes do. There are certain pairs of sneakers that I've had for a long time. I have one pair right here that, once again, I've had since Texas, the Converse classic kind of platform shoe. And I remember these being, when I first got them, I was like, ooh, these are my cool mom shoes. Because I might have actually been expecting my first kid at the time. So it was like my gift to myself for becoming a mom, I guess. I don't think it was purchased for that particular occasion or reason, so maybe not. But I do remember thinking, like, those are my cool mom shoes. I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. Yes, I cringe at myself. But yeah, so I do tend to keep shoes for a long time. I have some pairs that are even older than those. And, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 years of wear and rotation. And it takes me a long time to wear things out because of how much I have. And so I am finally, slowly, at last, learning that I don't need to be acquiring new things, and I can really just take a break. Like I said in the last video on fashion that I did here, I can make my wardrobe a dormant category in my life and really just focus on other things. Not acquiring other things, but just other things in my life. Other life-enriching activities. It is kind of interesting because I still am somebody that enjoys fashion and maybe will continue to engage in at least seeing what's trending, even if it doesn't really affect what I do or what I wear, and certainly not affecting my acquisition, right? If I can participate in a trend and if I'm interested to do so, which my interest in doing so is naturally faded, but if I can participate with what I already have, then, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that I'm not drawn to shopping or acquiring new things for the sake of participating in fashion anymore. For the sake of increased comfort or having pants the right size, yes, but for the sake of just changing up my look or progressing my style is really something that I'm not into anymore or haven't been drawn to for what feels like quite some time now. And I guess other than the bag and then the sweatpants that I already purchased, there's nothing that I'm interested in adding during this holiday season where it's normally been customary for me to add something to my wardrobe. So, you know, using that as an excuse to try something new or get something that I don't strictly need but just want. None of those things this year are clothes. And so hopefully that marks a turning point for me and maybe suggests that I'm finally ready to do a successful no-buy year for 2026. Because I do actually still really want to do this and kind of show myself that it is possible to wait to buy the things that I want. Because ultimately, again, a no-buy period doesn't mean you'll never get the things you want. It just means you're practicing the discipline of waiting, of not indulging in the new shiny thing every time that you want it, or even sometimes that you want it, at least for a certain period of time. And so we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it feels like to go back to that challenge in earnest once the new year starts. I had one more note here about cosmetics. And for me, there's nothing that I use that feels like a signature, you know, this is the most mine of the cosmetics that I use. I have an example here of the lip balms that I bought 5 of during my no-buy year for Valentine's Day. And this would be maybe the only contender because of how much I use this despite not finishing a single one yet, and it being maybe one of my favorite products for the purpose. However, I have it because it was trendy. And so it really doesn't feel like it's mine in that way, right? It doesn't really signify, you know, I don't think anybody would see this and be like, oh, that's the lip balm Alexa uses, you know, like that just doesn't feel like something, you know, it's not like a signature shade of red or a signature kind of more niche product at all. You know, it's just a generic kind of, everybody on TikTok was crazy about this for a period a while back. And, you know, maybe some people still are, but right now it's just a product that serves a function and a purpose for me. And I wouldn't say no to trying a different version later, but I also am fine with the idea of just repurchasing my favorite shades out of this. And it's not really something that I would consider of any importance, I guess. You know, my brand of lip balm is not really relevant to who I am. And I'm not saying that nobody out there has no signature health and beauty cosmetic items. You know, people out there certainly probably do. And that's just maybe a whole different aspect of identity that I'm just not into anymore. You know, the makeup gurus probably do have their signature mascaras or lip balms, or, you know, I guess I do repurchase only one mascara, but I still wouldn't necessarily consider that a signature, especially since I don't actually wear it every day anymore. And for whatever reason this season, I've kind of, I don't want to say given up, but I've kind of let go of that need to be well presented at all times, even at work. I mean, I guess maybe what it is as well is kind of leaning into that notion that I don't have to wear makeup, or I don't have to participate in the standards for women in particular for looking put together in a professional environment. I do still always tend to wear makeup for performances and try to look maybe like next level, maybe feminine energy expressing, I don't know what it is, but I do tend to do that for performances still. But I've let go of a lot of that for just regular work days. And so that's how I've been doing with that lately. If I do an outfit video for this November, you might see a little bit of that playing out there as well. I kind of fell off the wagon in terms of both getting dressed with intention and documenting, and so we'll see how that pans out. But I'll let that be a video for another day. All right, with that, I wanted to ask you, what are the things in your life that feel the most yours? Why do they feel like yours? Tell me your stories. Tell me the history of the things that you feel like other people could represent or recognize you by. And with that, I will say bye for now and see you in the next one.